The children were laughing. They ran through the garden outside the orphanage, chasing butterflies and playing tag under the warm morning sun. Flowers bloomed. The sky was blue. It was a perfect day. In the main hall, Miss Alara watched them with a soft smile. She was a caretaker, young, kind, and always tired. But the children's laughter gave her strength. "Miss Alara," one of the boys shouted. "Can we go to the hill?" "Only if you behave," she said, raising her eyebrow. "We will," the children replied in chorus, and they all burst into giggles. But then, the sky began to change. It started slowly, the sun dimmed. Shadows stretched long across the ground. The warmth in the air turned cold. Miss Alara looked up. A dark shape was moving across the sky, covering the sun like a hand smothering a candle. "What is that?" she whispered. The children looked up too. One of the younger girls, Nara, clutched Ilara's hand. "Is it a spaceship?" she asked. Ilara didn't answer. A low hum filled the air. The ground began to vibrate. Then came the fire. Without warning, a burning lance of energy shot from the sky. It struck the edge of the city, and the shockwave followed a second later. The orphanage shook. Windows shattered. Dust filled the air. Screamed inside. Everyone inside now. The children ran, stumbling, crying. Another blast hit the nearby park. Flames shot high. Smoke turned the air black. One boy fell. His leg was bleeding. Ilara picked him up, coughing hard, eyes watering from the smoke. But it was too late. A third beam came down, directly on the orphanage. There was no more sound, no more laughter, only ash. 3 hours later, news broadcasts froze in horror. Across every screen on Earth, emergency alerts rang out. Drones scanned the ruins. Emergency teams worked in silence. The city block was gone. A hole burned into the earth. And in the middle of that hole, the remains of what used to be a home for over 60 orphaned children. One reporter whispered on live news there were no survivors. At the Global Crisis Council, leaders argued, "This must be a terrorist attack," shouted a general from the Eastern Coalition. "No human weapon can do that," said an American tech commander. "Look at the energy signature." A young analyst stepped forward and dropped a file on the table. "That blast didn't come from the ground, it came from orbit." "Silence, what are you saying?" asked the Russian delegate. "Pale, it came from space, from a ship, alien technology." People in the room gasped. "Are we under attack? Why a children's home? Why not a military base? Who would do this?" A voice answered quietly from the corner. It was Admiral Greaves, retired but respected across all forces, because monsters don't fear armies. They fear what makes us human. They didn't attack our weapons. They attacked our heart. That night, Earth was silent. Cities dimmed their lights in mourning. Every screen showed the same image. A photo taken minutes before the attack. Children smiling, holding hands. Their faces now lost. Forever social networks exploded in rage. Billions cried. Billions demanded justice. But deep in space, far beyond Earth's moons, a silent station watched inside. Tall, thin beings stood around a glowing table. Their skin shimmered like glass. Their voices sounded like chimes in the wind. "It is done," one said. "The test was successful," replied another. "Did they resist?" asked the third. "No," the first one said. "They cried." They all nodded. "Good. Let the humans understand they are small. If they fear, they will obey." But none of them noticed the human probe watching them from the asteroid belt back. On Earth, in a dark control room beneath Geneva, Commander Riven stared at the live feed from the probe. He leaned forward, lips tight. They planned it. They knew it was a children's home. His assistant nodded. This wasn't a mistake. Riven looked at the photo of the children one last time. Then he spoke slowly. "Get me the president and every military leader." It's time. 3 days later, the world changed. Earth's skies filled with warships, not just from one nation, but all of them. The United States, China, Russia, the EU, African defense networks, Indian star teams. Every space-capable nation sent its best. The newly built unified Terran fleet was no longer a peacekeeper. It was a sword, and its target was clear. Miss Ilara woke up in a hospital. She was burned, her lungs were weak, but she had survived. Barely a nurse leaned in. "You're the only one who lived." "The children I know," she whispered, eyes full of tears. The nurse hesitated. "There's something else. A message came for you." From the high command, Ilara blinked. "Me? Why?" "They want to see you." 2 weeks later, she stood on the bridge of TNV Rathburn, Earth's first long-range battleship. She wore a new uniform. Her face still had scars, but her eyes burned with purpose. Admiral Greaves walked beside her. "You're not a soldier," he said gently. "No," she replied. "I'm a teacher." "Then why are you here?" She stared out the viewport. Stars shimmered ahead. "I was their family. Someone took them from me. I won't let them do it again." Greaves nodded. "Then you'll like the name of our first operation." "What is it?" "Iron Mercy." Above Earth, the Terran fleet powered up. Thousands of engines roared. Behind every ship, a flag flew. But in the hearts of every soldier, one image remained. A playground, a garden, laughter, now silent forever, and in deep space, far beyond any alien's understanding. Humanity had begun to move, not with fear, not with grief, but with fire. On the dark side of a distant moon, a cold fortress floated in silence. Inside its stone-colored walls, alien leaders sat around a glowing table. The room was quiet. The walls were covered in star screens showing Earth. And its reaction, one of the taller aliens, called Vizier, leaned forward. His skin was pale blue. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he watched Earth's morning broadcasts. "They cry," he said, just as expected. Another alien, smaller but sharper in voice, responded. "Weak creatures. They weep instead of fight. Their hearts are too soft." The third council member, Elder Sorrel, stood and folded his 6 arms. "It is good. A broken enemy does not build fleets. It kneels." They all nodded. For years, the Galactic High Council had feared humanity's rise. The humans expanded. Quickly, too quickly. They adapted, they learned, and worst of all, they remembered every wound. Some races took thousands of years to move from orbit to other stars. Humans did it in decades, so the Council made a secret choice: destroy a symbol of their hope, break their spirit before they became too powerful to control. They chose the orphanage carefully. It was large, peaceful, and filled with young ones, the heart of Earth's future. Sorrel turned from the screen. "By now, they should be afraid." Vizier nodded. "Fear leads to obedience." But they were wrong. On Earth, fear had already burned away inside the unified command bunker beneath the Alps. Generals, scientists, and leaders watched the same footage of the attack over and over again. "This wasn't just war," Commander Riven said. "It was a message." President Okoye of the African Coalition leaned forward. "Then let's answer it." The room fell quiet. No one had expected that level of unity. Nations that once argued about satellites and territory now shared blueprints, weapons, and technology. China handed over its plasma core drive. The U.S. shared its newest AI systems. India opened its space yard data. Russia deployed secret orbital drones. Earth's walls had fallen. Its teeth were coming out. Meanwhile, in orbit above Mars, construction teams worked without rest. The TNV Vindicatora, brand new human dreadnought, was nearly complete. It was a warship 5 times stronger than anything Earth had ever built. In its core burned a prototype, Fusion. Cannon, it wasn't made for defense, it was made for extinction. Back in the stars, a smaller alien species known as the Valari watched quietly. They had once traded with Earth. Now, they watched the news in horror. "They're not afraid," one of them whispered. Another replied, "They are preparing." The Valari ambassador sent a warning to the Galactic Council. "You have awakened. Something terrible." The humans do not forget their dead, and they do not stop. The Council ignored it. They had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. One small world could not scare them, but Earth was not small anymore. Inside the Rathburn, Miss Ilara sat beside Admiral Greaves, reviewing tactical data. "Why did they choose the children?" she asked quietly. Greaves didn't look up, because monsters think breaking the heart will stop the hands. "But it didn't," she said. "No," he agreed. "It made us faster." Ilara's eyes were tired but steady. "Then I want to be part of it." "You already are," Greaves said. "We're calling it Operation Iron Mercy." She tilted her head. "Mercy." Greaves's voice turned cold. We will offer mercy to the innocent, not to those who burned our children. In deep space, just past Jupiter's orbit, Earth's stealth probes detected movement. Ships, large ones. Alien patrols had entered human systems again. They didn't cloak themselves, they didn't hide. They thought Earth would still be mourning, but Earth had moved on from grief to fury. Riven gave the order, target the scout fleet, no survivors. Within hours, a dozen Terran destroyers launched, silent, fast, invisible. The alien ships never saw them coming. In less than 10 minutes, they were all gone, not damaged. Erased, and somewhere in the black between stars, a simple message echoed. From Earth's newest long-range beacon to the ones who struck our children, we are coming. Pray we find your leaders before we find your homes. In the alien council chamber, the message played across the holoscreen. The room fell silent. Sorel's voice trembled, just slightly. Who gave them the right to speak like that? No one answered because, in their hearts, they all felt it. Humanity wasn't afraid. Humanity was coming, and nothing in the galaxy would stop them now. Rain fell softly over the city. Black umbrellas covered the streets as thousands gathered in silence. A slow, sorrowful tune echoed across the ground. The funeral was being broadcast across the planet. Every major screen on Earth showed the same image, tiny white coffins being lowered into the ground. 68 children, gone. Miss Ilara stood among the rows of mourners, wrapped in a plain gray coat. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a single white flower. Her face was pale, eyes tired, but she didn't cry anymore. She had cried every night since the attack until there were no tears left. Beside her, Commander Riven stood tall, his face as hard as stone. The military leaders had not come in uniforms today. This was not a moment for medals. It was a moment of pain. As the last coffin was lowered, President Okoye stepped forward and began to speak. The world weeps today. We bury our children, our future, our light, she said. But this was not a disaster. It was not an accident. It was an attack. Her voice turned sharp. They targeted the weakest among us. Not soldiers, not leaders. Children, people, stood straighter. Eyes narrowed, and they will pay. A single bell rang out across the city, and with that, the funeral ended. But something else began. In orbit above Earth, warships came to life. Engines hummed, guns aligned. Pilots climbed into seats, for the first time in human history. The armies of every nation flew under one banner, the Unified Terran Command. Inside its Central Operations Center, Commander Riven gave his speech to every fleet leader. Today, we stop being divided. Today, we stop being afraid. Today, we begin our first strike. He tapped the display, showing a map of the stars. Our target is the Cernan Patrol Zone. Intelligence confirms several alien ships passed through there before the attack. We will find them. We will track them. We will end them. One captain asked, what if the Council steps in? What if other species object? Riven's eyes were like fire. They didn't object when our children burned. No one asked again. On board the TNV Rathburn, Ilara stood in a new role, advisor to operation. Iron Mercy, she wore a military patch, no honorary. Not active duty, but every soldier who passed her gave a respectful nod. They all knew who she was. They had seen her face on the funeral broadcasts. They had read her name next to the list of the only survivor. Captain Lin, the ship's commander, joined her in the observation deck. You sure about this? He asked. Elara stared at the stars. No, then why are you here? Because I was their family, she whispered. I couldn't protect them then. I'll never forgive myself if I don't try now. Captain Lin said nothing. He simply nodded. Moments later, the call came through. Rathburn, report to Fleet Delta. We are jumping to Cernan space. The ship vibrated slightly as its hyperdrive charged. Ilara looked up as the stars began to blur. We're coming, she whispered. In the Cernan patrol zone, 3 alien ships moved calmly through the black. Their commanders were confident. After all, the humans had just buried their dead. No one expected them to launch an attack this quickly. Then the Terran fleet arrived. Without warning, without a word, 100 human warships decloaked in perfect formation. The lead alien ship tried to send a signal. It was cut off. Missiles streaked through the dark. Laser fire lit up the black sky. Human ships moved like sharks, fast, efficient, merciless. On the TNV Vindicator, Captain Reese spoke one word: engage. The battle was over in minutes. All 3 alien vessels were destroyed. Not damaged, destroyed. Destroyed humanity had made its first move. Back on Earth, the news spread fast. Terran fleet strikes first enemy targets in deep space. Earth's war begins. On social media, one message went viral. They burned our children. We burned their warships. Billions shared it. And in the Galactic Council chambers, panic began to rise. They attacked our patrol ships, shouted one alien leader. Those ships crossed into their sector. Argued another. They should have sent a warning. But they didn't. They struck fast. Too fast. Surel, one of the original minds behind the orphanage strike, listened in silence. He realized something terrible. The humans weren't just fighting, they were hunting. At a small refugee station orbiting a neutral planet, a young alien technician named Kira watched a video clip of Earth's fleet. They move like predators. She whispered to her friend. The friend nodded. They lost their children. Now they fight like they have nothing left. They're not like us, Kira said. No, the friend replied. They're worse. Yes, the friend said quietly. Because they feel everything. Days past, Terran drones spread across nearby systems. Satellites deployed. Human scouts moved deep into enemy territory, and every time they found a signal connected to the original attack, they erased it. No prisoners, no warnings. One alien base tried to surrender. The human reply: tell your council, Earth does not negotiate with child killers. The base was destroyed minutes later in the unified command room. Commander Riven met with the AI war system named Sage Strategic Artificial General Entity. Sage was cold, fast, and terrifyingly smart. What's our progress? Riven asked. Sage answered, voice calm and emotionless. 7 targets eliminated. 5 enemy scout lines neutralized. 1 orbital relay captured, tracing signal origin to deep galactic coordinates, likely Council territory. Riven narrowed his eyes. Can we reach them? Yes, Sage replied. But diplomacy will not protect you there. We're not going for diplomacy, Riven said. Understood, the AI replied. On board the Rathburn, Ilara watched another star fade in the distance. Another enemy post had been taken. She sat in silence. Captain Lin approached. We just received word the fleet is splitting. You're being transferred to the flagship. Ilara looked up. Why? They want you there when we hit their core worlds. She stood, slowly, pain still in her legs from her burns. Then, let's finish this. Captain Lin saluted. For the children. For the children, she said softly, across the stars. From system to system, word spread like fire. Earth is not afraid. Earth does not forget. And most dangerous of all, Earth is moving. The alien ship floated quietly in Sector 19 Gamma, near the edge of a red dwarf star. It was a patrol vessel lightly armed, fast and confident. Inside the control deck, a tall creature named Carex stood at the front. His skin was rough and greenish, and his eyes glowed softly in the dark. Anything on scanners? He asked. Nothing, Commander, replied his junior. The humans are still grieving. They won't come this far yet. Carex gave a slow smile. They cry before they crawl. It's always the same. He walked toward the observation panel, watching the stars swirl slowly outside. A small Terran drone drifted past the edge of their sensors. The crew ignored it. They shouldn't have. Exactly 12 seconds later, the drone exploded, sending out a silent pulse. Hundreds of kilometers away, in the deep black TNV Revenant, received the signal. Pulse confirmed, the pilot said. Commander Harlan didn't blink. Stealth mode off. Weapons hot. The Revenant cloaked. It didn't send a warning. It didn't announce itself. It fired, too. Torpedoes streaked through the void and struck the alien patrol ship dead center. Carex never even had time to shout. One moment, he was watching stars. The next, he was part of them, inside the unified Terran fleet's war room. Commander Riven watched the footage silently. Revenant reports, patrol destroyed. 0 casualties, said his aide. Good, Riven replied. Message the aide nodded and brought it up. It was short and direct. First blood, no mercy. Across the war room, high-level officers and AI systems coordinated the growing campaign. Every day, new targets were identified. More Terran ships were deployed. More alien bases vanished from the stars. The revenge wasn't fast, it was methodical. It wasn't wild, it was strategic. And above all, it wasn't over. In the galactic core, panic was spreading. News of Earth's growing fleet had reached dozens of species. Many were unsure of what to believe. Some said Earth's ships were invisible. Others said humans used living AI that hunted by smell, and some who had seen the attacks. Up close said nothing at all. They had no words left. Inside a floating council, stationed near the Zyre Belt, alien leaders gathered in fear. "We cannot allow this to continue." One shouted, "Earth will destroy our patrol routes," said another. Elder Rel, one of the few who had planned the orphanage strike, said nothing. He only watched the stars on the hologram map and wondered if his name was already on a Terran kill list far from the council, in the outer ring of humanity's expanding zone of control. The TNV Hammerfall made contact with a strange structure. It wasn't listed on any star map. It didn't belong to any known species. And yet, it had alien energy readings matching those from the weapon that had destroyed the orphanage. Captain Juno stared at the giant station floating in deep space. "Is it a relay? A power source?" she asked. The ship's AI responded calmly. "No, it is a listening post, very old, possibly loaned. It heard Earth's signals before the war began." Juno stepped closer to the screen. "So they were watching us?" "Yes, Captain," said the AI, before the attack. Juno turned to her weapons officer. "Target it. Full barrage, understood." Moments later, the secret post was erased. No messages were sent. No records left behind. The message was simple. "We know you were watching. Now we're watching you." On board the TNV Rathburn, Alara sat with a group of Terran Marines. They were joking, laughing, eating in the mess hall, but she could feel the tension beneath their smiles. They were too alert, too focused. "They say, 'We're heading deeper soon,'" said one soldier, young and nervous. "Deeper into what?" Another asked. "Into council space," the first replied. Alara leaned in. "And does that scare you?" The soldier blinked. "Honestly, not anymore." "Why not?" He looked down. "Because they burned children. And because we're not here to talk," the others nodded. "Talking's over," someone muttered. Aboard the alien command ship, Trelawnus, General Riedel watched security footage from the destroyed listening post. He looked older now, tired. He was once a proud voice in the council. But the humans had taken that pride apart one missile at a time. "They're closing in," his aide said. "We were supposed to crush them before they became a threat," Riedel muttered. "But we didn't," the aide said. "No," the general replied. "We gave them a reason to fight." Back at Earth's orbital HQ, Commander Riven received a new message from the AI War System Sage. New data located. Tracing command signals. Origin point, Council homeworlds likely, the War Council's personal fleet. Riven leaned forward. "Are you certain?" "Yes," the AI said. "Can we reach them?" "Yes," Sage replied again. "But not with politics." Riven stood and walked toward the main table. "Then begin preparations." Name of operation. The AI asked. Riven stared at the hologram of the alien council worlds. "Call it Judgment Fire." Within the next 48 hours, Earth's fleet launched a new wave of attacks. It wasn't just ships now. They began targeting infrastructure, fuel stations, drone relays, communication satellites, and everywhere they went, they left the same signal behind, a red mark, a child's handprint, burning in white fire across enemy screens. A reminder, a warning, a promise. In a small neutral system, the Valari species held a secret meeting. Their ambassador, Kira, had been watching Earth's war closely. "We must speak to the humans," she said. "They're not like the council. They remember the smallest wounds. They fight with fire in their hearts." "Should we join them?" one elder asked. Kira paused. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe we stay out of the way and survive." As the TNV Rathburn approached the edge of council-controlled space, Ilara stood on the observation deck once more. She no longer looked broken. Her eyes were sharp, focused. A Marine approached her. "We just crossed into enemy territory," Ilara nodded. "Good. Are you ready?" the Marine asked. She turned to him and said, "I was ready the moment they chose to bomb children." In the dark heart of the galaxy, the War Council gathered once again. But this time, the fear was visible. "Earth is coming," one whispered. "They have no limits." Another said, "They don't need numbers. They just need names." "Elder." Surel said nothing, because deep down, he knew his name was already written. They thought everyone had died that day, but deep under the rubble, beneath the ash and twisted metal, a single heartbeat remained. A small hand moved, a weak voice whispered, "Help," and that whisper would shake the stars. The medics rushed. Through the ruins, drones buzzed overhead, scanning for signs of life. It had been days since the attack, and most had lost hope. But Commander Reyna refused to stop searching. "There's someone here," she said, staring at the collapsed basement of the orphanage. "I can feel it." A rescue drone beeped. Life form detected. Faint vitals. Under 10 meters of debris, Reyna's eyes widened. "Dig now. I want full focus on that spot." Men and machines tore through the rubble. Dust clouded the air, and metal screeched as it was pulled aside. Finally, a narrow tunnel opened. A soldier crawled in with a flashlight. Moments later, his voice came through shaking. "It's a child, alive." Cheers erupted, but Reyna only whispered, "Get them out." Gently, the girl's name was Elara. She was 7 years old. Her skin was burned. Her eyes were wide with shock, but she lived. Reyna knelt beside her in the medical tent. "You're safe now," she said gently. "You're very brave." Elara said nothing at first. Then she grabbed Reyna's hand. They came from the sky," she said, voice trembling. "Big ship, loud red lights, and a symbol." Reyna leaned in. "What symbol?" Elara pointed shakily to a drawing pad. She drew it a sharp triangle with 3 lines through it. Reyna's face turned pale. "That's not just any alien," she whispered to her team. "That's the mark of the Tharkesh Dominion." General Voss, listening from a nearby screen, cursed. They broke the intergalactic peace treaty. That was a direct attack on civilians. Reyna nodded, and the worst part? They targeted children. Back at the Global War Council, Ilara's testimony was played for every world leader. Her small voice filled the massive chamber. They didn't say anything. They just dropped fire. And the other kids, they screamed. The room went silent. Even hardened generals looked away. Then President Morgan stood. Her voice shook with rage. "One survivor told us the truth. They weren't aiming for a base. They were aiming for innocence." A deep silence followed. Then she continued. "We warned them. We signed peace. But now we respond." She looked to Admiral Knox. "Send the fleet." In orbit, Earth's warships gathered. Hundreds of them. Battleships, carriers, dreadnoughts. Knox stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance. "We don't fire first," he said to his officers. "But if they want war..." He looked at Ilara's drawing, now pinned to the front console. "Then we'll give them a war they'll never forget." Meanwhile, far across the stars, inside the Tharkesh High Command, they rescued one, a voice hissed. "Yes, my lord," an officer replied. "A human child, barely alive." The Tharkesh warlord slammed his fist down. That was supposed to be clean, silent, no survivors. The officer bowed. "Human warships are gathering. Their fleet is moving." The warlord smiled cruelly. "Let them come. They're emotional, weak. A single child won't change the outcome." But he was wrong, because that one child had already changed everything. The enemy expected Earth to break. Instead, they watched in horror as the first Terran war fleet entered their system, and didn't stop. Smoke drifted across. The charred ruins of the city once known as New Geneva, but this time it wasn't Earth that burned. It was the planet Theraxis, homeworld of the Zorath Dominion One. Of the alien races behind the orphanage bombing, Captain Elara Voss stood. On the bridge of the human dreadnought, Vengeance. Her eyes stared at the cracked surface of the enemy world. "Status?" she asked calmly. "Orbital dominance achieved," replied Lieutenant Grant. "Enemy defense grids are offline. Ground resistance is collapsing. Any more survivors?" "Down there, only soldiers. No civilians left. They evacuated before we arrived." Elara clenched her fists. "Cowards." General Marcus Harlan appeared on the bridge's holoscreen from command. "We have confirmation," he said. This was one of the command planets behind the orphanage strike. Authorizations came directly from here. And now, Elara asked. Now, we give them a message. Burn their war factories. Leave nothing that can launch again. 3 days earlier, human military HQ Mars the War had changed Earth. The moment images of the burning orphanage spread across the net grid, everything shifted. Protests stopped. Politics stopped. Debate stopped. Humanity spoke with one voice. The enemy had murdered their most innocent. There would be no peace. Mars became the war capital of Earth, inside a vast underground command hall. Military leaders from every continent gathered. General Harlan stood before them, his voice cold. They wanted total war. So we'll show them what total war means when waged by humans. Beside him, AI Commander Kronos projected a map of the enemy systems. These are the 3 primary worlds behind the attack, Kronos said. We will not strike civilians, but we will erase their war machines, their fleets, and their control hubs. A murmur of agreement passed through the room. Phase 1, Harlan continued, is Vengeance Fleet Alpha. Orbit of Therex is present, firing main batteries, shouted Grant. Red beams lanced from Earth's warships. They hit the enemy shipyards, causing chain explosions. Factories erupted, towers crumbled. Enemy ships scrambled to escape, but Earth's fleet had learned after losing their children. They had built machines without mercy. No enemy vessel escaped orbit, sir, said a comms officer. We're receiving a signal. Not from Theraxis, from deep space. It's not a distress call. It's a warning. Elara turned. From who? They're the ones who funded the Zorith strike. They're threatening. Earth Illara's voice didn't shake. Tell them they already made the biggest mistake possible. They hurt our children, and now they'll see what comes next. Back on Earth, Council Chambers, Geneva Crater World, leaders gathered inside the underground Geneva command bunker. The old city, now a crater memorial, President Malik of the African Union leaned forward. Do we respond to the Krellin threat, Prime? Minister Zhao from the Eastern Coalition spoke firmly. No, we don't respond, we act. A hologram of Kronos shimmered above them. I have located the Krellin weapon labs, deep inside asteroid fields, hidden, shielded, but not beyond reach. Send in the ghosts, said Malik. Gasps. The ghost units were Earth's most secret. Weapons, AI-driven black ships with adaptive stealth tech, no crew, no mercy. If the Krellins want to see what death feels like, Zhao said, let them feel our shadows. Meanwhile, Krellin High Command, Asteroid Fortress Zenth, Vrek of the Krellin Navy paced the crystal chamber. They are not behaving like the others, he hissed. We bombed children, and instead of begging, they came with machines. General Orthus, his skin flickering with fear, replied, We miscalculated. Humans. They're from a death world. Their psychology is alien. We thought they would break. They did break, Vrek snapped. But what rose after the break is worse than anything I imagined. The floor beneath them exploded in fire and shrapnel. Earth's ghost ships had arrived. Hours later, Mars Command Center General Harlan received the final report. Krellin Labs destroyed. No survivors. He looked out across the command floor. Hundreds of officers watching. This is not revenge, he said, voice steady. This is justice. We are sending a message. Earth is no longer a passive world. He paused, letting his words echo. We warned the stars. They ignored us. They killed our future. Now we erase theirs. Orbit of Therex's final orders, Captain. Elara watched the last enemy vessel explode in orbit. Mission complete, Grant said. She gave a quiet nod, then turned toward the screen. Send a message to all systems, she said. Let them know. Earth has changed, and we are coming. In deep space, a new threat watches from a distant system, hidden in dark matter clouds. An unknown species watched. Earth's rise, they had remained silent during the war. Observing, one of them turned to their leader. They were weak before, but now they are becoming like us. The leader's many eyes narrowed. Worse, they have grief in their hearts. Should we intervene? The leader's response was cold. No, not yet. Let them teach the galaxy what true wrath looks like. The alien prison was cold and dark. The humans inside had been tortured, starved, and left to rot. But they were still alive, One of them, Sergeant Eli Ross, whispered through broken teeth, "They don't know. Earth is coming." Suddenly, the ground shook, the walls cracked, and far above them, the sky began to scream with fire. The prison compound on the moon of Vorther 6 was buried deep beneath the surface. It was built to hold dangerous enemies of the Varnock Empire traders, rebels, and now, humans. Sergeant Eli Ross lay on the floor of his cell. His face was swollen, ribs cracked, one eye shut from bruising. But he was breathing. Somehow he was still breathing across the narrow hallway. Lieutenant Mari Tanaka gritted her teeth as she pulled a sharp piece of metal. From her palm, she had carved something into the wall, a single word: mercy. It had become a joke. The Varnock had none. Ever since their attack on Earth's orphanage, humanity had struck back hard city by city, system by system. But Mari and her squad were captured during the first assault on Varnock territory. For months, they were tortured for information. None of them gave anything. Then, one day, everything changed. The silence outside their cells was broken by sirens. "What's happening?" whispered Mari. "I think it's here," Ross whispered with a faint smile. "They found us." A thunderous explosion tore through the far end of the corridor. Red warning lights blinked on, and for the first time in weeks, the smell of fresh air crept in. Plasma fire rattled through the halls. Then came the voice. "This is Commander Knox of the 5th Terran warship, Wrath of Sol. All prisoners stand back from the cell doors." Ross chuckled, coughing blood. "Told you." The blast doors exploded. Inward, a squad of Terran Marines stormed the hall in black and silver armor. They looked like monsters to the Varnock, but to Mari and Ross, they looked like angels. "Targets confirmed." "Extract the prisoners," the lead Marine barked. "Med team now." As medics lifted Ross and Mari onto stretchers, one of the younger Marines leaned close. "We've got you. You're going home." Mari grabbed his wrist with weak fingers. "No, not yet. We need to speak later, ma'am." "You're injured, no?" she said firmly. "You don't understand. There's more." On board the Wrath of Sol, as Ross and Mari were stabilized, the War Council was called. Commander Knox stood before a large 3D hologram. "We rescued 20 human prisoners from the Varnock compound. 18 are critical, 2 are awake. They claim they have information we need." General Orlan, a grizzled veteran with a robotic eye, leaned forward. "What kind of information?" "They said the Varnock didn't act alone." Gasps filled the chamber. Mari and Ross were brought into the room, weak but alert. Knox nodded to them. "Tell them what you told me," he said. Mari sat up slowly. "The Varnock aren't the masterminds, they're puppets. We overheard high-level communications, transmissions sent to something called the Silent Tribunal." Ross coughed. "The Varnock answered to them. Always. Coordinates, attack, plans, even the order to strike the orphanage, all of it came from the tribunal." General Orlan slammed his fist on the table. "You're saying someone told the Varnock to kill our children?" Mari nodded. "Yes, sir, and we have the location." Silence filled the room. Then Commander Knox spoke where Ross looked up, pain in his eyes. "Deep space, unmapped region near the edge of the Centauri void, cloaked system, hidden, but not anymore." General Orlan narrowed his eye. "Then we go there. We burn it down." A week later, the fleet was ready. 20 Terran warships, 5 carriers, a swarm of drones, and one prototype vessel, the Vindicator, the deadliest ship ever built. Captain Lynn Vega, commander of the Vindicator, stood on the bridge, staring at the swirling blackness ahead. "This is where they hide?" she asked. "According to the prisoner data, yes," said her science officer. "Cloaking field is strong, but we can break it." "Do it." The engines roared, and the stealth systems of the Tribunal's hidden fortress began to flicker. One by one, the stars around the region snapped back into view. Then, the fortress was revealed. It wasn't a city. It wasn't even a station. It was a massive black cube, larger than a moon, surrounded by rings of satellites and spiked weapons. "Dear God," Vega whispered. "That's not a fortress. That's a weapon." Inside the black cube, the members of the Silent Tribunal watched silently from their thrones. They were not Varnock. They were older, stranger, their faces hidden behind metallic masks. One of them turned to the others. "They found us. Another responded in a cold, clicking voice. Impossible. Then explained the Terran warfleet at our gates. They shouldn't be this strong. They were primitive. They are Deathworlders, hissed a third. We forgot what that means outside, Captain Vega gave the order. All ships begin assault. Show them what happens when you strike Earth. The stars lit up with fire. Drones swarmed forward like a tidal wave. Missiles howled through the dark. The cube fired back. Massive energy beams lanced out, destroying 2 cruisers instantly. But the humans didn't stop. They advanced. They adapted. The Vindicator's main cannon charged. Target the power core of the cube, Vega commanded. Locked. Fire. The beam that followed tore through the void like a sun lance. It slammed into the cube's surface and pierced it. A chain reaction began. Explosions bloomed across the structure. Inside, the tribunal screamed in rage. One of them tried to escape through a portal only to be crushed by collapsing debris back on Earth. People watched from every screen, every corner of every nation. Children in shelters, mothers, fathers, soldiers, survivors. They saw the black cube explode in real time, and they cheered out in the aftermath. Ross stood on the deck of the Wrath of Sol, bandages around his ribs. Mari joined him, watching the stars. We finally got them, he said. Mari nodded. And we'll get the rest. However many are left. Ross looked at the stars. They thought, we were weak, just humans, just another race to crush. Mari smiled bitterly. They were wrong. He turned to her. You know what scares me most? What? We're just getting started. Children no longer laughed on Earth. The skies were quiet, but not peaceful. Cities were rebuilding. Soldiers trained harder. And above it all, the fleet waited in low orbit silent, ready and watching. Captain Mara Voss stood alone on the bridge. Of the ISS Vengeance, she looked down at Earth with cold eyes. They think we're done, she said quietly. But we're not. Lieutenant Harris entered the bridge. Ma'am, the High Command has finished decoding the last alien signal. She turned, show me. A projection lit up. Alien symbols danced across the screen, then translated into English. Your young were a warning. Stay in your system, or the next generation dies screaming. Mara's fists clenched. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They're taunting us, Harris. Nodded, and there's more. The signal came from the Scourge worlds. Same species that attacked the orphanage. She turned back to the viewport. Then it's time we send a message of our own. Halfway across the galaxy, on the Scourge moon Catherine, General Vars watched the transmission logs. His command center was filled with noise sensors, advisors, and the constant hum of deep space scans. They haven't responded, hissed one of his lieutenants. They will. Deathworlders do not ignore such insults. They pretend to be calm, then they strike like firestorms. Another advisor tapped the console. General long-range scans show Terran fleets forming. Their dreadnoughts are mobilizing. Vars smiled, sharp teeth gleaming. Good, let them come. We will show them what real terror means. Back on Earth, a meeting was held in a deep mountain bunker. The generals of Earth's United Defense sat in silence as Admiral Riker stepped forward. No mistake, he said. The Scourge want us to hesitate, but we will not. A hologram showed the Scourge homeworld 7 red-lit planets in a violent system. They think attacking our children makes us weak, Riker continued. They don't know us. They've never seen us when we're angry. Someone in the crowd spoke up. We don't even know what they want. Why start a war with children? An AI voice answered. Because that's how they wage fear. They don't fight soldiers. They break hope, and nothing brings more hope than a child. Mara stood. Then we give them a lesson they'll never forget. Not fear, fury. The Terran fleets gathered. Like a storm cloud, hundreds of ships, thousands of fighters, AI-guided dreadnoughts, drone swarms. Each ship bore names carved from grief. Ashes of Eden, Children's Wrath, the Crimson Orphan, Vengeance of Soul, one ship, ISS, Mercy's End. Had a hole painted with tiny handprints. Their color matched the ashes found in the destroyed orphanage. As the countdown began, Mara gave a final speech to her crew. We are not just soldiers, she said. We are the voices of the lost. We are the hands of justice. And today we bring the storm. The Scourge had prepared defenses. orbital mines, planetary shields, beam cannons, but they hadn't prepared for what Earth had become. When the Terran fleets arrived, there was no negotiation, no warning, only silence and then fire. The AI dreadnoughts moved first, disabling shields with pinpoint plasma strikes. Drone clouds surged forward like dark waves, blocking sunlight over enemy cities, and then the human carriers launched the orbital drop troopers. Black armored figures fell from space like raining death. Their boots hit alien ground, and they didn't stop walking until they reached the heart of each Scourge base. Mara led the first drop. Her rifle was marked with the name Amira, the name of a child who once gave her flowers. During peacekeeping duty on Earth, she didn't speak as she moved through the Scourge trenches. She just pulled the trigger. General Vars watched the battle unfold. Panic spread through his command. They've breached for defense sectors. Drone fire overwhelming our lines. They're inside the Citadel, General. He bared his teeth. So, they are monsters. A voice came from behind. No, they're parents. He turned. A human stood there, scarred, armored, and holding a burning plasma blade. It was Captain Mara Voss. You, ... How? Vars snarled. Mara didn't answer. She simply raised her weapon. The last thing Vars saw was the reflection of Earth in her eyes. Across the system, the Terran fleet crushed resistance with terrifying speed. But something strange happened. Next, the humans didn't destroy the planets. They landed. They removed civilians from war zones. They offered food, water, medicine, and then they broadcast a message on every frequency. We are not here for conquest. We are here because you made us come. We will rebuild what you destroyed. But no, if you ever harm our children again, there will be no survivors. Back on Earth, the fires were gone. Orphanages were being rebuilt. Statues of the fallen stood tall in every city square, and above them all, the war fleet hovered in silence, ready for the next storm. In the sky, banners waved. You touched our children. Now you know what that costs. The alien commander stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, staring at the tactical screen. Dozens of red markers blinked around the edge of human warships. They had come from nowhere, silent and fast, and they were not leaving survivors. Another one of our fleets has gone dark, said his second-in-command, voice shaking. Which one? The commander asked, though he already knew. Sector 12, the Ravagers. Sir, gone. No signals, no escape pods. The commander clenched his jaw. That was a full destroyer group. 10 ships, over 3,000 warriors. Yes, sir. He turned away from the screen and looked out the window at the stars. And how many humans did we see? 1 ship, sir. Ship. Across the dark expanse of space, the human dreadnought Saul's Vengeance floated like a ghost. Its armor was scorched. Its engines burned blue fire. Its crew didn't speak much anymore. They didn't celebrate victories. They didn't feel pride. They only felt focus, purpose, and rage. Admiral Kira Sloan stood at the center of the command deck, arms crossed behind her back. Update, she said. Enemy fleet eliminated. Ma'am. Minimal resistance. No survivors. Any civilians. None detected. Kyra nodded. She stared at the screen, showing the path of their next jump. Bring us closer to the Central Command world. We strike in 3 hours. But ma'am, Hercom's officer asked carefully, our orders are to wait for the Second Fleet to arrive before the assault. Kyra turned to him. Her eyes were cold. We don't wait. Not for monsters who burn children. The alien High Council gathered in panic. On their homeworld, deep in a protected star system surrounded by defense satellites, they had always felt untouchable until now. Human fleets have broken through 4 sectors in less than 2 cycles, shouted one elder. We underestimated them. Another yelled, they do not fight like the others. They do not retreat. They do not negotiate. They were, week before, soft. Why are they like this now? Because, whispered the Prime Chancellor, we made them monsters. All eyes turned to him. The attack on their orphan shelterwit was meant to frighten them, humiliate them. Instead, it forged something we have never seen before. And now, the Chancellor closed his eyes. Now they are coming for us. And they will not stop. The human fleet moved through hyperspace like a storm. Ship after ship, silent, glowing, weapon charged. Inside Saul's Vengeance, the AI gave a soft beep. "Admiral Sloan," it said, "we are detecting a wide-frequency transmission from the enemy homeworld. Play it." A voice echoed through the speakers. "Weak, tired, alien. This is Chancellor Vorak of the Garak Alliance. We offer surrender. We are prepared to pay for our crimes. Please, no more blood." Her voice was soft, but sharp. "Did they ask for mercy when they bombed that garden?" "No, ma'am," someone whispered. "Did they hesitate when they aimed for the sleeping children?" Silence. "No," Sloan said. "Then neither will we." The Garak homeworld was massive. Green skies, black mountains, golden cities that shined like treasure. It had never known war on its soil, until now. The first orbital strike came without warning. A pillar of fire slammed into one of the defensive towers. Then another, then 3 more. The shield grid flickered. Then failed human ships dropped from orbit. Not to conquer. Data centers, weapon factories. No civilians were harmed. No children touched. Only the architects of war, the generals, the scientists. The leaders were captured or destroyed. Chancellor Vorak stood on the palace balcony, staring at the sky as it burned red. "Now I understand," he whispered. "Why they fight like they do, why they do not break? We made them like this." Behind him, heavy boots echoed. He turned slowly. Admiral Kyra Sloan stood there, flanked by armored Marines. Her face was unreadable. "You're the one who ordered the attack," she said. Vorak's voice trembled. It was strategy, shock and awe, meant to frighten your people. She stepped closer. "You didn't scare us. You woke us." Vorak fell to his knees. "Then what happens now?" Sloan looked down at him. "Now, you answer for every name written in ash." Far above, in the stars, the rest of the galaxy watched dozens of species, hundreds of worlds. They had seen humanity before traders, explorers, diplomats. But now they saw something else. Not monsters, not saviors, but forces of reckoning. The galaxy whispered the new truth. Do not harm Earth's children unless you want to meet their nightmares. The last alien command ship drifted above Earth, engines dead, its hull cracked and glowing. Inside, the enemy general crawled through blood and smoke, clutching a blinking data drive. Human footsteps echoed down the corridor, cold, slow, and certain. The war was ending. But the message the human brought, it was not peace. It was a warning. They had come to destroy Earth's children. Instead, they awakened something far worse. Commander Rhea stood on the bridge of the ISS Vengeance, Earth's final warship in the fleet. Smoke from the recent battle still curled along the shattered console edges. Debris floated outside the view screen. Alien ships twisted, broken, rifted like dead leaves in space. She looked at her second-in-command, Lieutenant Caden. "Status." Caden's voice was low. "Enemy fleet neutralized. Their last command ship is adrift. They're trying to signal." "Put it on screen," Rhea said, eyes narrowing. The holoprojector blinked to life. A single alien, General Threx of the Kalari Dominion, appeared. His face was scorched, one eye burned shut. "Terrans, please, we surrender." Rhea did not blink. "Surrender was an option before you incinerated our orphanage in New Jakarta. Before you slaughtered the children." Threx coughed blood. We were ordered to strike fear, to test your defenses. We thought your kind were slow to act, peaceful." "You were wrong," Caden said coldly. "Mercy," Threx whispered. "We beg." "Mercy." Rhea stared at the dying alien. Then she spoke the words that had become legend. "Earth does not forgive the murder of its children." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Then, from below the ship's deck, came the low hum of charging weapons back on Earth. Across every major city, people gathered in the streets. The war was ending. The skies no longer burned. No more red storms, no more sirens. The nightmares were over, or so they hoped. President Leona Ward stood before the United Earth Assembly. Cameras captured her every word. Behind her, the names of the fallen, millions of them, scrolled across a giant screen. "Today," she said, "we remember the first strike, the red sky, the children." The crowd grew silent. "We did not start this war. We never asked for it, but we ended it. And we made them remember. Earth is not weak. Earth protects its own." People cheered, not for revenge, but for justice in deep space aboard the crippled Kalari command ship. The surviving officers gathered what little remained of their power. They tried to send a signal to the other alien empires. One word repeated over and over: beware. The humans were not the prey. They were the reckoning. Back on the ISS Vengeance, Commander Rhea stared into the void. Orders, Commander Caden asked. Send the final message to all systems, all races. Let them know what happens when Earth is pushed too far. And if they respond, Rhea turned slowly. Her voice was calm. Then they will burn as the Kalari did. Later that night, in a small, rebuilt orphanage on Luna Colony, children laughed again. A boy ran through the garden. A girl chased after him. But now, above them, satellites watched the stars. AI guardians hovered in the sky. Earth had changed, it would never be caught. Sleeping again, not while the memory of that first red sky remained, not while humanity remembered the day. Their children were taken, because in that moment, Earth had not just fought back, it had become something new, something terrifying, a warning to the galaxy.